Rachel Reeves today, Keir Starmer tomorrow, when it comes to the stripping of winter fuel payments, which could, according to Labour's own research back in 2017, could actually lead to almost 4,000 pensioners dying of cold this winter. Well, let's talk about this and many other stories with my next guest, former Labour Party advisor Mike Buckley, who joins us right now. Good morning to you, Mike.
Morning, how are you?
Very well indeed. Probably better off than pensioners who are worried about juggling their money to make sure they can actually keep the heating on and still afford food this winter. Now, here's the thing. I'm pretty sure that most people who did vote Labour at the last election didn't think that, yep, what I'm doing is I'm going to be voting Labour, and I really hope Keir Starmer completely, absolutely gives it to those pensioners who are on just above poverty rations and make sure they can't afford their heating this winter. This must surely horrify you, this measure.
I think it surprised a lot of people. I mean, it surprised me. But what didn't surprise me is the fact that the public finances are in a right state after the last 14 years of
Hold on a minute, that surprised Rachel Reeves. She had no idea, apparently.
She did know, but she didn't know all the detail, which is entirely understandable. No incoming chancellor knows all the detail because they don't get access to the government books or the ONS books, of course, until they get into power. So on arriving, she then discovers what she's been left with, and it's worse than she had imagined. It is 22 billion back hole. She's got to meet it. Now, we don't have access to all the detail. She does. She has decided that this is the best way, or the way that she's chosen anyway, to balance the books. Balancing the books is essential. Some might argue that she could be doing it a different way, as in cut something else or raise revenue elsewhere. She's made this choice and she's standing by it.
Can I just say, if I said now, back in 2010, just introducing George Osborne, the Chancellor for a Conservative and coalition government, I think he could have made exactly the same speech when he came into power in 2010. And you've just made the same argument that Labour were criticising wholeheartedly for the entire time of the austerity years. That, well, you know, tough choices came in, things are difficult, these are the choices you've got to make. I mean, George Osborne, thanks for joining us on the show, Mike. Come on.
That's a little harsh.
Is it?
But I hear what you're saying.
Do you think he would have said anything different?
I mean, in some ways, Labour is replaying George Osborne's playbook from 2010. George Osborne came in and he said, there's no money left. Labour spent all the money. That means we've got to introduce...
So was he lying, or you lying, or are you both telling the truth?
What is different about this government is that this government will not maintain austerity. This is not an austerity government, as evident, for example, by the fact that they've spent a lot of money putting up wages in the public sector, which were held down by the last government for 14 years.
For highly paid train drivers, top of everyone's list of people in need.
And nurses and police, I mean, and people...
Nurses didn't get the same pay rise as train drivers.
No, they didn't, but they did get a pay rise. So that is the important thing.
Pat them on the head.
Their wages were held down. We all know that our public services are in a complete state. One of the reasons for that is we've had people leaving the professions.
Yeah, it's true.
Because they've not been paid while they are. So Labour is fixing that. Labour is fixing the finances now so that...
Is there an issue with train drivers leaving their jobs on 65k a year before the pay rise? I don't think there was there?
I don't know.
No, I mean, there's a perfectly strong argument for paying doctors and nurses and radiologists and everyone more to make sure you've got good people staying and more people being recruited. I don't think you have to apply that argument when it comes to train drivers on 65 grand.
Their wages were also held down. Whether that led to a recruitment crisis, whether it's people leaving the profession, what it did lead to was strikes on a regular basis, which affected train users, which of course inconvenienced people, but it also inhibited economic growth. So that is not a situation that could last for the long term.
Well, it would be. Well, again, the unions have said they will never be content. So careful what you wish for. But here's the thing: we know that the public finances is in a terrible state. Some of us are actually able to see a lot of this beforehand by looking at the Office of Budget Responsibilities reports, the Institute of Fiscal Studies. Everyone else was able to look at the books, apparently, apart from Rachel Reeves. But of all the people, we'd say, the broad-shouldered should be shouldering a lot of the pain. Quite right too. I'm one of the broad shoulders. I accept that. I'm not sure that most people think that those who are pensioners, who are not the poorest, not on pension credit, but the few million just above that, who are still struggling, who would make decisions about not putting the heating on because they feel they can't afford the heating bill, the heating, not eating, or eating, not heating people. I'm just not sure most people think those are the broad-shouldered people who should be penalised.
I don't think anybody would argue that those are broad-shouldered people.
So why are they being hit?
because the government has had to draw a line somewhere, the easiest place to draw that line is to cut it off at the pension credit line. They are also encouraging people who don't take up pension credit, which is about 900,000 people.
It's a 245-word questionnaire to get that.
Yes, it is. Now, I do wonder, given we know how many of those people there are, I do wonder if we also know who they are.
In which case, just give it to
me.
me.
Also just automatically give them this without the form. I also wonder whether we could just massively simplify the form and make it, say 6 tick boxes. So I would like the government to do something on that to enable those people to take up that credit. That would be helpful. But you're right, there's still the cohort of people just above that threshold, which is apparently still quite a lot of people who will struggle to make ends meet this year. And I was just listening to Paul Nauk, who runs the TUC Trade Union Congress this morning, and he made the very sensible point that what he wants to see in Rachel Reeves' budget in October is that she puts measures in place to compensate those people. And I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing.
But it depends how complicated it is and how long it takes. You end up spending more on the admin than you do from just giving it to people, including my parents, who don't need the 300 quid a year, but you just give it to them because it's quicker and simpler and cheaper for the government than it is to means test and go through all that process for everybody else just to cut a few million people out.
Well, there are ways around that. I mean, Martin Lewis from Money Saving Expert has recommended giving it to council tax bands A to D. There's also the idea of a social tariff for fuel payments for poorer people. So, but that, again, might be something they would need to apply for. And I think particularly given pensioners, some of whom don't really like doing things online and don't even like phoning people necessarily, it probably is best to think of something where they don't have to.
All I can say is I could just imagine the headlines and the cry of outrage from Labour when Theresa said, oh, I don't have to imagine it, because when Theresa May stupidly wanted to do this in 2017, those were exactly the sort of headlines. And this report suggesting that almost 4,000 people could die as a result of stripping pensioners from their winter fuel payments. That was true in 2017 when people's fuel costs were far, far lower than they are now. Why on earth is it not true now? Is Labour knowingly prosecuting a policy which they know will kill thousands of elderly, vulnerable people?
Well, I haven't seen that research, and I don't know how robust that is.
We haven't seen that research. No, it was put out by the Labour Party in 2017. You can't play that I haven't seen that research. It was put out officially by the Labour Party.
It was put out officially by the Labour Party. I don't know how robust it was or what evidence.
Oh, they were making it up.
Well, I'm not saying they were making it. I'm just saying that I don't know. I sincerely hope that that is not true, and I sincerely hope that if it is in any way true that even one person would die as a result of this policy, never mind 4,000, the measures will be put in place by government or by councils to ensure that that doesn't happen.
Do you think that I hope some old age pensioners don't die because they're too poor to put their heating on this winter, with your fingers crossed? Do you think that's the way that a Labour government, of all governments, should be governing?
It should ensure that nobody dies, and I'm sure that every.
I mean, people die, and more pensioners die. Old people are more likely to die in winter than they are in summer. But there are some basic facts there. But fundamentally, if people are dying because they are too afraid to put the heating on, and that's as a result of Labour taking their £300 a year winter fuel allowance, then Labour will be effectively saying we're not that bothered if some old people die, because they were really, really bothered about old people dying of COVID in 2020 and 2021. They wanted the entire country shut down. They wanted children banned from going to school, people banned from seeing their families. But old age pensioners dying from COVID, absolutely not acceptable. But if they die from not having their heating on, that's just fine. We'll just hope for the best.
Nobody, including Rachel Reeves, wants any pensioners to die as a result of this policy or for any other.
But Labour say 4,000 will.
I'm sorry?
But Labour say 4,000 will.
I haven't seen that research, so I don't know how robust it was.
Front page of newspaper today.
I am sure that work is going on within the government now to work out what the impact of this policy is. The budget is yet to come.
Shouldn't they have thought of the impact before they announced the policy?
I think it is incumbent on us to encourage Rachel Reeves to put some measures in place that will mitigate the impact of this policy if there is going to be a negative impact. And I'm sure that this is top foremost in her mind as well. Most importantly, because she doesn't want to see people suffer. Okay. But also, of course, because they want the headlines running on this.
Well, I'd like to think it would be about the suffering more than the headlines, but I fear in today's politics, probably not. Mike Buckley, there's so much more I want to talk to you about. I'm glad we got into that, though. Former Labour Party advisor Mike Buckley, thank you.